Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I have a really interesting dream to tell you about, and I am really excited about it. I just think it's really interesting how everything kind of comes together. But before I do, I'm going to pull a card like I usually do and see what the card tells me in reference to the dream. So I'm going to here, I've got the Ciro Marchetii, I got the Gilded Tarot. I stopped using the dream cards because it felt like that there was just something more to it than just a dream, that there was like something really relevant to life in general that I needed to know. And I think that the tarot cards kind of explain or outline it a little bit better than the dream cards do. So that is why I stopped using them. That's why I went back to the Gilded Tarot, because I just feel that there's something more to it than just me, blathering on. Oh, the Sun card. The bottom of the deck. It's a Sun card. That's always cool. Always love seeing that card. It's always a very positive card. It's probably one of the most optimistic cards in the entire deck. Just really beautiful. But let's see what card I pulled today. So, okay. All right. So here we go. Okay, this card I got today is the Eight of Swords. And again, I'm not sure if this is in reference to me or if it's in reference to the dream. So we'll see. But what I see on this card is the woman is blindfolded and there's 8 swords surrounding her. Now, I've always gotten the impression that the swords were a suit of power, of how people use their power, what they do with it, and how they either prosper or fail with regards to their power. And it seems to me that she doesn't really realize how much power she has because she's blindfolded. She cannot see the swords that are surrounding her, and that perhaps this is indicative of how often people misjudge or don't rely on the fact that they do have power within and that they can overcome things. Now, what I'll do is I'll pull the book out after I do the reading here with the dream and see if I'm even close with this. But this is how I look at the imagery of this card. And it looks to be that her hands are bound. So she has no way of actually accessing the swords. The hands are bound in the picture. You can see it like really close. I didn't notice that at first, but yes, her hands are in fact bound and her eyes are concealed. So she truly has put herself, or she is in her position right now, in a place where she does not have really any power over what's going on around her. So I'll put that to the side and then I will get started on the dream. Today is day number 13. It's May 16th, 2025. And this dream is called The Roundabout and the Girl with Puppies. And I said, okay, before I go into the dream, I have to ask, is what I'm feeling about the plane being involved in espionage a valid question? And Nigel said, it would depend on what ultimately happens with it. But given what you have been thinking about it, yes, it is plausible. I said, it was actually the first thought that I had when I heard about the actual plane. I had that feeling that it was being bugged. Is this a sign of not being very trusting on my part? Nigel said, it is you being balanced and logical. Most people who are in a position of power offering up something of great value, even deprecated value, do have motives in mind. Just about every decision that is made with that in mind. Will this decision benefit me? Will it bring me harm? What are the risks involved? And I think back on this card and I think, wow, this is kind of like what we're talking about. But I will continue and no more interruptions on that. The questions are pretty much wide-ranging and far-reaching. When you decide to eat eggs for breakfast instead of muesli, then that has no lasting impact. When you decide to travel to Canada instead of to the US, you are choosing this as a motivation as opposed to simply making a trip. How do you feel about yourself in deciding? What is your underlying motivation? And so on. So each thing you decide is not about your own consequences, but it could have an impact on the world around you. That is a rather simplistic way of addressing this, but one could have one would have to look at the motivation of those offering a lavish gift. How will it benefit them? This is not merely someone sending a card or buying a birthday present. This is something that is massively big and will have an impact on diplomacy. So, to answer your question, yes, there could be bugs in the mechanics here. I said, I don't know if I wanted to continue talking about this. It seems like there are more things that are relevant to discuss, not some egomaniac who wants to have presence. And Nigel said, then let's shift gears and talk about your dream. I said, okay, that sounds good. I called this the Roundabout and Girl with Puppies. So I was on a car trip with someone. I don't think it was my husband, but anyway, so the trip had been a long one, and for whatever reason, I knew the way, and I was navigating the person who was driving. The driver was not my husband, but he was present. Okay, so my husband was there in the dream. Okay. As we reached the roundabout, I said, go to the left. And as we drove along the path, the road changed, and we found ourselves in a curbless dirt road. We stopped and got out of the car, and as we walked, we came upon a large ruin. It had very high walls, and it looked like a historical monument. As we came inside, I saw groups of children playing. At the top of one of the walls, of sorts, we saw a little girl and two fluffy-looking puppies seated there. The puppies were balancing along the top of the wall, walking as though they were on a tightrope. I feared that they would fall from it. Just before they could, the girl reached out to them and tried to prevent them from falling. As they fell, I ran towards them, hoping to catch them before they impacted with the ground. I failed and they hit the ground, but neither the puppies or the little girl had been injured. They were all okay. Later, I was standing next to the girl and was looking at a bin. I had pulled a hat and winter scarf from it in the hopes of making it a Christmas present. And I woke up. Any ideas on what that might have mean? Metatron says, it seems to be all encapsulated in choices. Go left or go right. You mentioned gifts. You mentioned a girl and puppies. You tried to help them. All of this is about choices. You mentioned to Nigel about the plane and the choices that other people made. The dream is along the same perimeters. First, when you were on the road and navigating, there was a choice. Turn left, turn right. I see Doctor Who reference here. Metatron says, yes, and it's a perfect way to describe all of this. You are faced with a choice that will have an impact on the well-being of others. The girl and her puppies are affected by that initial choice. Would she still have fallen even if she was seated had you not been there? You don't know. Taking yourself out of the equation, then history would have played out a different way. What if you said that a choice would have reaped a negative result? I said I would have chosen the other option. And Metatron says, okay, so what if the choice had a negative option? What if that choice had a negative option as well? What would you have done? I said I probably would have picked the less painful choice. But in many instances, I don't know the outcome. Metatron says, perhaps not. But in many of the choices you make have a historical precedent. That is, a choice that is similar in scope to your present choice. The question of turning left or right in a situation only leaves you to rely on your own instincts. Do you turn left and at the end end up at a ruin, or do you turn right? I said, yes, but since we turned left, I don't know where the right would have led us to. Nigel says, you have been navigating. You would have had to know. This isn't about walking blindly. You either had a compass that would tell you how to navigate in a certain way, or a phone with a map. You see, you had the tools at your disposal. You could have figured it out. I said, yes, but in the dream, I don't remember being aware of that. I was basically following my gut instincts. Metatron says, okay, But you do bear in mind that to navigate, you would need the instruments of navigation so that you could make a well thought out choice. This is what I meant on the precedent. You know how to navigate things. You utilize the tools of navigation, tools that you require to reach the certain destination. Your distinction, your destination was there, was the ruin where the children were playing and the girl with puppies was seated at the top of that wall. I said, okay, so why was she up there? Metatron says, choice. She made the choice to be up there. I said, yes, but she fell. She didn't get hurt, but she still fell. Metatron says, her choice to be up there was not known by you. Yet you sensed the danger. The same sense you got when you spoke to Nigel earlier. You said the plane is bugged. You saw the danger that the girl was in. In both instances, your instincts are telling you that there is a danger afoot. This does not mean that the people involved will necessarily listen to you, but the notion is there. You sense it and you respond to it. I said, was the meaning behind this dream of premonition? The dream was dated February 17th, 2024. Metatron says the dream was a premonition, but not necessarily about a plane. It was about an aspect of the plane. The idea that the world is full of people making uneducated choices that is predominantly focused on their own comforts, wishes, and wants. The plane is only an aspect of this. When you look at the people involved, you see a person who is like a child and wants something. It does not matter if the object of his desire is a potential hazard. He is like that little child in a kitchen wanting to play with household chemicals and winds up at the emergency room for ingesting poison. I said that analogy goes back to the dream about the asbestos in the RV. Metatron says, yes, it is connected. As we explore your dreams further, we will uncover the psychic energies that you possess. You see, this is why we are exploring dreams from 2024. You are now seeing how they are relevant to today. Each time you can recall your dreams in the present, you are seeing that they play along with the events in your world as they play out. The notion of the child with puppies illustrates the innocence of the world, of the people who are affected by an evil man. The act of falling off the wall are the realization that bad things can happen if one looked at the world through rose-colored glasses. The little girl is that innocence. The puppies are the unwilling participants in a world gone crazy. I said, so basically the people who voted for a madman are represented in the dream by the little girl, and those innocents who are affected by the madman but didn't vote for him are represented by the puppies. Is that what this means? And Metatron says, exactly. Your dreams are made up of symbolism and ideas, of concepts, and oftentimes you will have dreams about people, places, or things, and they will hold far more relevance than you may consciously realize. Did you notice that you dreamt about a ruin? What colors were that ruin? I said autumn-like colors, browns, light browns, beiges. Could that place be my library or the throne room? This is getting really too weird. And my Metatron says, the notion of time is in the universe irrelevant. You use the term timey-wimey. This is timey-wimey. The ruin is the castle where the throne room was. The library and other things transpired there. You learned that the humble king is Pope Leo, that the high wall and the girl can be representative of the current state of the U.S. The voters that put him in as the little girl, the innocence with the puppies, and you observing it all and asking the right questions. This ruin was the place where all things ended. That ruin is the castle that fell. But the hope is in the wisdom of the people who understand that love is the answer. The dream was a foreshadowing to today's world. But the fact that the place was filled with children playing should be an indicator that all will be well, that what is torn down can be rebuilt. The child that falls will be helped. The puppies will come through unharmed. That is the hope in the dream. I said, but the destruction of the castle is kind of sad. And Metatron says, keep in mind that the ideals of the people will rise victorious. The wall may crumble, so the bridge may and can be built. All of these things are symbolic to your world. The fact that the world was navigated to this place by the choices that were made cannot be understated. These choices affect the world, and now humanity is deciding for itself to get back on the proper path to fulfilling its ultimate destiny. That is why intuitive people are saying that we must go through some rough patches before we reach the end of the rainbow. I said, this is so wild. The dream was from last year. Metatron says, it doesn't matter, Yvette. Whether it was last year or this year, the universe will be heard and you will understand. And I said, thank you. This is really a massive realization. And Metatron says, indeed, but you were meant to discover it now. Do not ask yourself why you contemplated it a year later. Time is, in this instance, irrelevant. And I said, thank you, Metatron. And I said, thank you to my guides. And that's where we ended. So, yeah, okay. So I'm going to look up this card because I think there's something relevant here. I think there's really, this is like really kind of creepy, but it's also relevant. So let me find this book here. Oh, that's Major Arcana. Okay. Here we go. Swords. Eight of Swords. Okay, here we go. Against the backdrop of the night sky, we see a solitary woman with her eyes, ears, and wrists bound, surrounded by 8 swords. Note how the swords do not touch her, and the chain around her wrist appears to be loose. The light that emanates in a downward stream from the swords represents clarity of thought, which, due to her blindfold, she cannot see. Feeling restricted, fear is preventing you from moving forward, and your confidence may have taken a knock. However, as the image shows, some of the swords are actually touch the woman, and only bound scents are preventing her from moving out of the situation or seeing it clearly. The advice of the card is to remain calm and strong, not to give in to feelings of paralysis in order to progress out of the situation. Bear in mind that the swords depicted in the card also represent clarity of thought, and therefore the answer is available to you. Perhaps you need to look at the situation differently. So that is the card that we get for, I think, for the dream, that there is a way of looking at it in a different way. And the fact that I looked at this and I saw a little girl and puppies and thinking, oh my gosh, this little girl's falling from this wall and there's puppies and stuff. But it was all symbolism. And I had to look at it in a different way. I had to see things in a different way in order to understand what the dream really meant. So that's really very, very telling. The next card I got is the King of Pentacles. And this is I believe this is the good father, the good leader, the good person. Well, we mentioned Pope Leo in this, and the King of Pentacles is that person, that good father, good husband, good leader, good person. So maybe this is the personification of him in reference to the tower, or not the tower, the castle, the throne, the humble king, and how love will conquer all, and that love will defeat the evil that's in the world. So we have a choice. We may not be aware of it, but we will see it at some point, that the good leader will step forward and will bring us to that point where we understand our power and understand where we are in the world through leading by example. The next card I get is Justice. And this is actually I think this is the overarching energy in all of this, is that we want justice. We want to see justice happen. We want to see the good overcome the evil. We want the happily ever after that is depicted in movies and films and things like that. We want to see this. We want to see that the truth the truth will prevail, that justice will be served. And what I find interesting about this card in relation to this card is both people in the cards are blindfolded. They're blindfolded. But this one knows that inherently that justice is justice may be considered blind, but justice will prevail. Whereas this one is almost not willing to see this. And the fact that both of the figures in these cards are both blindfolded, but for different reasons. And it's very, very telling to me that we're seeing two figures that are blindfolded, and yet they have completely different meanings and completely different ideas. This is the person who's willing, who's really got obstacles to overcome, who wants to overcome them and is not seeing a way to do it. And this is the person who's saying, I'm not going to look, I'm going to feel, I'm going to see with my heart and with my mind what is right and just in this world and how we can overcome it. So that's really interesting. I'm going to pull one more card. I got the Nine of Wands. This guy looks pretty tired. He looks like he's been through heck and back. He's got the one wand, but he's using it as a sort of a crutch just to hold him up, where the other 8 wands are behind him. So this is like a struggle. And maybe this is the fear that this guy has of this. Yeah. So considering his stance and how he's looking at the ground, this guy's not doing too well. And this may be just his coming to grips with what's going on. Let me find it in here, because I just want to give you at least a decent these minor arcana cards are sometimes hard for me to remember. Okay, this is the Nine of Wands. A man deemed dressed for battle guards 8 wands. The 9th he holds before him in readiness to fight, defend, and protect that which he has worked so hard for. We can see by his pose and expression that he is weary, yet he will still bravely protect his position. 9 is the penultimate number of this suit. When the 9 of Wands presents itself, it tends to show that you feel if all of your energy has been spent. The road has been long and you don't feel if you're up to another step. Okay, let's just stop for a minute. Although you feel on the verge of giving up, the message of the 9 of Wands brings you to your success closer than you think, and that you actually have an inner strength required to make it. Well, that's very hopeful. So maybe very hopeful that we will have justice, that we're tired. We don't want to take anymore. We're really exhausted, and I can understand that. And that makes a lot more sense than what I thought. So, yeah. Okay. And then the final outcome, the Wheel of Fortune. Another major arcana card. The Wheel of Fortune. Well, let me just make sure that I have it here. The Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune, because I haven't never pulled this card before, so I have to make sure I get it right here. The Wheel of Fortune sits against a backdrop of heavens and planets. Upon face are shown the signs of the zodiac. There is no human element shown here to influence the movement of the wheel, so we are left to consider that fate is at work here. The movement of the wheel depends upon the mechanics that drive it, and where it lands is a question of chance. The wheel represents the cycle of life, showing the transient nature of change. This is also known as the Destiny card. And remember in the dream I mentioned destiny, and that I remembered how destiny has a way of, human destiny is something that Metatron actually mentioned. So this is like, us following our way to destiny. We have 2 major arcanas here. We've got Justice and we've got the Wheel of Fortune. And I think that with these 5 cards, I think that what we're seeing us feeling like we're bound by something outwardly, outer forces, outer things going on. It's crossed by a king who is loving and kind and caring. So he's there, present in our lives and present to help us through. And I think personified by Pope Leo the 14th. That is who I think is the personification of this King of Pentacles here. I think that he is the cross of the entrapment that we are feeling through everything that's going on in the world. And the justice card comes in and says, okay, we got justice is blind and justice is going to be served no matter what. It's overarching energy throughout everything that's going on is the justice, that justice will be served. And then we see us weary and tired from the strain of everything going on and trying to get through and hoping that we have the strength to make that one more step. And at the end, everything is decided. It's destiny. Destiny will be the decider of what happens. Karma, the angels, the guides, everything that is encapsulated in what destiny is will be decided in the final outcome of this reading. So that's what I got. Yeah, I don't know all the cards. I'm still learning. So thank you for being here, and thank you for bearing with me while I learn this. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. And as always, namaste.